welcome to Clan TV. As you can see, we have a special guest with us tonight.
Very special guest.
None other, very special guest. None other than Dave Sims. Dave, thank you very much for joining us. Happy to be in Scotland this weekend?
Well, nobody's attacked me yet. I got across the border okay. Passport control was pretty cool, but we're okay, yeah. No, all good, all good.
Good stuff. Now, you're about to entertain the fans here with some stories and some anecdotes about your time in ice hockey, and I'm sure you'll mention a few others as we go as well. But tell us a wee bit about your background in ice hockey, how you became involved.
Well, background's pretty simple. I was taken to an ice rink by a former girlfriend who said, let's go skating. We get to Solihull ice rink and there was no skating because it was a Sunday night, so we went and watched the Solihull Barons, and that was really how it all started. So I have a lot to be thankful to her for dragging me to an ice rink. And then I started off, you know, the way we all start off. You go to a few away games. Blackpool was the first one I went to, Crowtree up in Sunderland. Developed onto a supporters club committee, then set up a management committee that took over the running of a club. Was a team manager of the Solihull Barons for a while. I was only in my 20s at this point, early 20s then. And then from there, knew a guy called David Garner-Brown, who was the marketing director of Heineken, who were the league sponsors in the old British Premier and British Division 1. And David had the rights to put an ice hockey team into Sheffield, but didn't know really how to go about that. He got some money backing from a guy called George Dodds, and he needed some hockey background. So he offered me the chance to go and work full-time up in Sheffield. Nobody worked full-time in hockey in those days. So I said I'll go up for a couple of weeks and see how it goes and help him set everything up. Put Ronnie Wood in charge, got Ron Shuger there, did all of those things. Except it didn't last 2 weeks, it lasted 23 years. And you know, then I've done every single job in Sheffield, from flogging 50-50 tickets to being the team manager to being the associate director on the board, doing all of the things and pretty much every job that's known to man, working with all the owners, which has been interesting, and working with all the coaches, appointing a few of them, firing a couple more.
You're clearly passionate about the game in this country. Most people recognise you from your time on Sky Sports Television presenting and the highlight show, as well as the live games as well. But what have you made of the Elite League as a whole this season? I like it. I think the best thing that happened to the Elite League was a couple of years ago was the conferencing. And of course, conferencing only worked because of your club here in Braid. Because without Braehead, there wouldn't have been Fife, there wouldn't have been Dundee, and therefore there wouldn't have been enough clubs to do conferencing. I think conferencing has worked. So I'm a fan of conferencing, I'm a fan of the Elite League. I think on things like import quotas, things like that, I think numbers are right. I'm not a great fan of reducing it, I'm not a great fan for expanding it. I think the league has become more stable, more solid, more secure. And I also think there's now potential for growth. We know we're going to get a team in London in a couple of years' time. We're seeing Cardiff with a new facility. So the facilities are getting better, the awareness is getting better. So I think the Elite League is in a much stronger position than perhaps what it was 4, 5, 6 years ago. The Elite League's not supporting Newcastle anymore. It's not supporting Manchester. It's not supporting those clubs that needed it financially. And that financial drain on the league, and we'll talk about that I'm sure tonight, now means that it takes the league time to recoup that money and get ahead of itself again, but now can be put into development. I'm sure we'll talk about referees tonight, especially up here. I mean, we think we got bad referees in England, and then we do a day trip out to Scotland and realise how wonderful our referees are. But we have to spend money on referees, on their development. And that is now able to be doing that because the clubs are stable and the league isn't bailing individual clubs out like it was doing at the end of the Eamon Convery era. The Braehead Clan have only been in existence, this is only their 4th season, but they've made steady progress in those 4 years. Ryan Finnerty, a good pal of yours, is now currently the coach. What have you made of the job Ryan's done? Great job, he's a top bloke. And I think he'll admit that he perhaps came to Sheffield a little bit too early, and when Paul Reagan appointed him. But he worked his socks off for us, and he's a top fella, and he'll give you everything he's got. And he'll make honest mistakes because that's the kind of bloke he is. But he's done a good job, and he'll do a good job here. I hope he's here for a long time. I know he enjoys it here. Yeah, can't understand any of you, but he enjoys it here. But I think he's excellent. He's a good recruiter. If you look at the teams he recruited in Sheffield, he recruited very well. He's a likeable person to play for. People like to play for him. They enjoy coming to the rink when he's in charge. So that's a good thing, especially in this league, because
if you're getting, say, more experienced North American imports, which we predominantly do, they don't need 3 coaching sessions a day. They don't need to be driven. They need to have fun. That's why they've got on a plane and come across here. And if you can make it a good environment to play, you'll be a lot better. And he makes it a good environment to play. He's a good man.
We've seen the 4 Scottish clubs in recent years take part in the Elite League. This year in particular, Braehead and Dundee have done very well, while Fife and Edinburgh are pretty much holding up the league. But what's your view on Scottish hockey as a whole in terms of its contribution to the Elite League?
Well, its contribution to the Elite League is immense, and then again, we revert back to the decision that Neil Black took to bring Braehead there. That, I wouldn't say saved the Elite League, but what it did was it gave Fife and Dundee the options to come in where they were never going to come in when there was just Edinburgh. But when Braehead came here, the options for Fife and Dundee, so therefore the Scottish quartet is a strong quartet as a group of 4 clubs. One club needs huge reshaping, redevelopment, reinvestment, and that's Edinburgh. But the other 3 clubs, I think, are finely run businesses, good run clubs. Dundee got off to a great start, had no injuries, everything was swimming. Now, of course, you're starting to see a little bit of fractions when they've developed some injuries. But no, I think Scottish hockey's in a much better place than it was, certainly at the Elite League level. I'm sure one of the things we'll talk about here tonight is the SIHA and pretty much what a disaster that is. And therefore how the Elite League teams are actually the people driving Scottish hockey, not anybody else.
I'd like to ask you about your Twitter persona as well. You tend to be quite controversial at times. One tweet in particular this week about women's hockey has caused a lot of debate this week. What are your views on women's hockey genuinely? Well,
firstly, let's talk about the debate on Twitter. Firstly, there's a group of people out there where I could say the sky was blue and they would debate that it wasn't. And I was a colourist, or a sexist or a racist or whatever. The comment the other day to Gunnar Svensson, who's a good friend of mine, he's Henrik Zetterberg's agent, by the way. He's the guy who got Paul Thompson the job in Troya. It was a simple one. Nobody cares really, Gunnar. Sweden's women lost to Canada women. I don't really think a lot of people did care either, to be fair. My view on women's hockey, as I just described to you off camera, I'm all for it. I just think it should be played in the summer months because I think it's recreational. And I think there are 2 ways that we get better kids to play this game. And that's building more facilities, therefore they can have more ice time. But the problem with that is it costs tens, if not hundreds of millions of pounds, and that's never going to happen. We live in a real world. It ain't ever going to happen. So then the other way we can develop our youngsters, the Glaswegian youngsters to play for Braehead, the Sheffield youngsters to play for Sheffield, is develop their ice time better within the restrictions that we've got. Sheffield, for example, has 9 recreational teams. All the ice time that takes, I know they practice at ridiculous o'clock, but they're still taking up ice time. So my view is that recreational hockey and women's hockey should be moved to the summer months, and then they can have as much ice time as they want. There's less demand on the ice in those months. But then in the winter months, then we only use that for what I call the serious hockey. Let Julie play hockey. I'm all for Julie playing hockey. But until Julie can make a 30-foot pass from the blue line onto the back of Jeff Lagui's stick for a simple tap-in, I'm not really interested in it. Okay, that's just a fait accompli. That's not sexist, it's not anti-women, it's not anything, it's just that I ain't interested in it. Me, David Sims, couldn't care less. But I'm all for girls playing, I'm all for women playing, but play in the summer, because the reality is, it's recreational. It's as recreational as 2 chubby guys like you and me playing hockey. And we can go and put the skates on and we can go and get some ice time. But we're never going to be Braehead, Clan or Sheffield Steelers players. And neither's Julie, unfortunately. And that's the reality. So it's recreational. It's never going to be a pro game. It's never going to make a living out of it. So go and play in the summer. And you won't have a bigger supporter than me.
Now you're here tonight to talk to the Braehead fans, as I mentioned at the intro there. What do you get out of nights like tonight where you're able to share your stories and interact with the fans as you are tonight?
There you go. No. Yes. These are just good nights. I got 30 odd years of experience here. You can look at it. There's very few people, if anybody, who's got the experience. I sat on the BIHA board, the Super League board, the Elite League board. I've worked for a club in every single position. So there's pretty much not a question that somebody can come up here tonight with that I can't answer. The other thing I think other fans have found in Cardiff and Fife and places like that is things that perhaps the league doesn't communicate. Why is the playoff championship always in Nottingham? I'll explain. It's not why it's always in Nottingham. Is it fair it's always in Nottingham? No, it's not fair, but we don't live in a fair world. But Nottingham's the right place for it, and that's the place where it should remain. We'll talk about import numbers, and I'll explain why they are where they are. So I think we can lots of the issues that are out there, we can perhaps give answers to those issues on nights like this. Also, I've been around a lot of characters in my time, and you have a few funny stories. I think at a club like Braehead, there'd probably be less stories tonight, because a lot of the stories that I can tell are about people that a lot of the people here won't know. So they kind of lose a little bit. Where you can go to Fife and you can tell a lot of old stories because there's a lot of old people in Fife. But we'll debate, we'll argue. I'm sure some people will have a pop at me, which is what I kind of like as well. So we'll be good. And hopefully we raise 1,000, 1,500 quid for the Braehead clan, which isn't that good? I think it's good. I think it's good. I think you know, every club has to look at every external revenue stream you can, and you know, hopefully fans have a good night. It makes them more connected with your club. They perhaps learn a little bit as well. I like to call it educational, my visits, and we'll take it from there.
Now, obviously, as you're here tonight, Braehead clan taking on your team, Sheffield Steelers, tomorrow. How do you see that game going?
I think Sheffield will win it. I'll tell you why I think they'll win it. Unfortunately, if your backup goal is in, I think the league is a league that, if a quality team puts enough rubber on a backup goalie, doesn't matter who he is, and your lad is a good lad. You know, Will's played very well. He's a smashing kid. I know Ryan rates him very highly. But I think if good teams get at him, the nature of the beast is if they get at Woolhouse, if they get at Dan Green, if they get at any of these lads, it's one of the deficiencies of our league, if you like, is that the backup goaltender sometimes is a little bit vulnerable, and there's very little to choose between these two teams, you know, Sheffield and Braehead. But maybe that's an area that I'm certain Sheffield will try and expose. I would imagine they'll be throwing a lot of rubber at the lad tomorrow. Now, he's done brilliantly well and he's won you some games, but sooner or later that comes to an end, as it did in Hull the other night. That's why I would say, if I was a complete neutral here and I was looking at the two lineups, I'd say Sheffield have the edge because, if you like Doyle, our goaltenders, you know, Will.
Thanks very much, Dave. Have a good night.